What is up, everybody? Welcome to the premiere of audiobooks that I have purchased and listened to the last few days. They're all basically brand new releases except for the Stephen King If It Bleeds one. That one came out a couple months ago, but the other four have all come out just over this past weekend. I definitely recommend at least checking one of them out, if any. If I would have to do them in order, I would have to, of course, say the Stephen King book first. But the other four are definitely good listens. So I would recommend you check them all out if possible. But what I can do for you is if you click on the link in the description below, you will be able to get one of these for absolutely free, no strings attached. You click on the link, it'll take you to the Audible website. You get a free 30-day trial, which you could cancel at any time, and you get to still keep the audiobook. So there's no catch, no gimmicks, no anything. You want one of these books, click on the link and go and get it. That's basically it. But for now, let's go over the 5 books and you can decide which one you want to grab. My recommendation, grab all 5. Anyways, let's go with the reviews. All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about, the author is Rick Wood, and the book is called Shutter House. So again, it's an audiobook. I'm going to play a sample for you in a bit. But basically what this one is about, it says here, desperate for money to save her sick mother, Amber reluctantly agrees to rob a man's house. After all, the man is ridiculously rich and lives in a huge mansion. What's more, he soaked an innocent woman with his Mercedes. He deserves it, right? That's what her brothers say anyway. Then, whilst inside the house, Amber enters a room on the top floor, a room full of dead bodies. That's when the shutters descend around the outside of the house. They are trapped, and he's home. Shutter House is the heart-stopping horror novel from Rick Wood that reached the Amazon UK #1 spot in horror suspense. If you like your horror tense and violent, then you will love Shutter House. I'm going to play you a sample now.
No matter how many times she attempted to blink, her right eye would just not open. Her left eye was fine. A dollop of blood had dribbled into it, but a succession of blinks had fought the blood away. The blood in her right eye, however, had been there for so long now it was beginning to crust. He couldn't help but chuckle. She looked like a pirate on a budget. He wanted to make her say "yar" and curl her finger into a hook, but he was barely able to get a word in amongst all the damn screaming. Though the screaming wasn't the most irritating thing about her. That would be how, amongst her colossal cascade of shrieks, a flicker of her saliva had landed on the sleeve of his Armani suit. "Do stop shouting," he instructed. He did have an apron handy for when the fluids really started flying, but hadn't thought to wear it quite yet. Who'd have thought that a bludgeon to her head and a few screams would damage his suit? "Shut up!" he grunted at the shouting girl who had the audacity to not only spit upon the fine silk adorning his arm, but to ignore his instruction and continue to bang on with the same old "Stop, please stop," and "Just let me go," and "Oh, please, no, I'll do anything." Because, well, she won't do anything, will she? For example, she wouldn't willingly die to be let go. Therefore, she would not do anything. Stupid, stupid girl. "I said shut up," he repeated with added conviction. Her screams stopped, but some annoying, quiet, incessant pleading persisted. "Please, I promise I won't tell anyone. Just let me go." "I wonder if I could make it to Kensington for dinner. I do love their restaurants. I'd need to use the helicopter to get to London in time, mind." "I won't tell anyone! I won't, please!" "My black slim-fit silk jacquard evening jacket would be perfect for that. I did prefer the blue one, but I do not like the idea of being seen in something that was on sale." I won't tell anyone!" "Although it would have gone so well with that checkered shirt." "Please, I won't say anything." Yes, I heard you the first time," he said, unable to believe that she was still bloody nagging. She was like an annoying little sister, constantly pulling on your sleeve, begging for you to do something with her. At 13 years old, he'd ripped his little sister's earlobe off and made her tell mother and father she got it stuck in her friend's bike. Her friend got a jolly good rollicking from father, but the little bitch never bothered him again. My parents, they have money, he snorted, an unpleasant laugh that even he himself felt a little repulsed by. Well, I doubt it, he said mockingly. I won't tell. Oh, shut up, Cindy. You are getting rather tiresome. Where was that damn apron? Normally he'd take a little longer, try to savour it. But, honestly, this girl was starting to get on his nerves. He liked the screams. That's why he had made sure that the shutters were soundproof. But nagging was the worse. He could take the odd, ah, and holy fuck, that hurts. But just constantly going on and on and on and on. No, thank you, ma'am. He found his apron resting against the leg of his marrow-bone solid oak coffee table on top of his forceps, vascular clamps and organ holders. He tutted at himself for the impudence. Of course, he muttered. He placed his apron over his head. Beneath the lettering Cambridge Alumni, it was transparent. That way he could still see his pristine suit beneath the splatters. What are you going to do with me? She asked. He looked at her with purpose. He took her in, soaking up every little detail. Her blonde hair had gone all bloody and scraggly from where he had first hit her. Her eyes were still a little dozy, possibly from concussion, circling in and out, almost out of time with each other. Her rosy cheeks were flushed with red, her arms were shaken betwixt the rope, and by golly, she hadn't even seemed to realise she was naked yet. Please, I'll do anything. Again he found amusement in her words. She would do anything, though she probably wouldn't do it willingly. He scanned her, starting at her throat, dragging his eyes down her bare torso, past the hairy mound and down to her scarred legs. Honestly, he felt a little disappointed.
Now, I hate to sound rude if nobody knows who, or if you don't know who Stephen King is. Anyways, this one is a really, really good one. It is called If It Bleeds. As I said, written by Stephen King, narrated by Will Patton, Danny Burstein, and Steven Weber. This one runs 15 hours and 12 minutes. Very good rating, 4.5 out of 5 by people who have heard it on Audible. From the #1 New York Times bestselling author, legendary storyteller, and master of short fiction, Stephen King comes in an extraordinary collection of 4 new and compelling novellas: Mr. Harrigan's Phone, The Life of Chuck, Rat, and the title story, If It Bleeds, each pulling you into intriguing and frightening places. The novella is a form King has returned to over and over again in the course of his amazing career, and many have been made into iconic films, including The Body, which was from Stand By Me, and Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. Like 4 Past Midnight, different seasons, and most recently Full Dark, No Stars, If It Bleeds is a uniquely satisfying collection of longer short fiction by an incomparably gifted writer. I'm going to play you another sample of this one, about 5 minutes runtime. But don't forget, if you are interested in any of these books, audiobooks, you can get it for free in the description below. Click on the link. Again, it is a free Audible book of your choice. No strings attached. So let's listen to a bit of If It Bleeds.
To dinner.
The next book, audiobook, I'm going to recommend you check out, definitely at this time of year. It's called Payback is a Witch. Yeah, not with a B, with a W. Payback is a Witch by Roland Bursey. This one, I'm just going to give you the tagline. Basically, it's a magically fueled novella of extreme horror, proving that hell hath no fury, like a Wiccan woman scorned. It runs 2 hours and 7 minutes. Again, it was written by Roland Bursey Jr., narrated by Clinton Herigstad, 2 hours, 7 minutes of pure horror. Again, if you are interested, click on the link in the description below. You could get this, as I said, for free, no strings attached, through Audible. Here's a sample on this one, and hope you enjoy it.
2. Both women were, without question, formidable witches, but Raven was still inexperienced and unable to do much in the way of fending off her attackers. Gwendolyn knew that any spell powerful enough to permanently dispatch all 5 of the men attacking her daughter would not be possible to cast successfully, given the fact that most spells require considerable concentration and spoken word in addition to sometimes requiring material components, as well as measured and precise hand movements, which were known as somatic components. Raven needed an opportunity to escape, and Gwendolyn needed a distraction to make that possible. She steadied herself, tried to block out the panicked cries coming from her daughter, reached into her satchel, and began flipping through the sack of minor casting cards she brought along with her. She landed on and briefly considered using a thaumaturgy spell to produce a sound loud enough to divert the attacker's attention, but quickly dismissed the idea when she glanced up and her eyes landed on an overgrown section of brightly colored goldenrod plants. Buzzing lazily from one flower to the next, she saw a small swarm of fuzzy black and yellow honeybees, and she figured a compulsion spell would do the trick. She quickly found the compulsion casting card, glanced over it, and thanked Goddess that only spoken word and somatic components were needed. Luckily, no material components were necessary to cast compulsion. With a little time and the right components, she could have conjured a whole insect plague, but time was of the essence, and immediate action was pivotal if she was to be implemental in saving her daughter. Gwendolyn made a quick mental note and would definitely keep the plague idea in the back of her mind for later use. Though components were not necessary, Gwendolyn knew she could use the goldenrod flowers to form a stronger connection between herself and her soon-to-be minions. She quickly pulled off a thick cluster of the vibrant yellow flowers, which she crushed between the palms of her hands. She then reached out and snagged one of the honeybees mid-flight as it floated past her. Understandably aggravated at being derailed from its vital job of collecting nectar for the collective hive, as well as its equally important but unbeknownst role of pollination of flora within the local ecosystem, the bee buzzed angrily within the confines of Gwendolyn's circled fist. However, it made no attempt to defend itself by stinging her. Gwendolyn brought the fist containing the frenzied captive to her lips and urgently sounded off her spell while performing the somatic gesture necessary to cast compulsion with her free hand. Aristius, faithful keeper of stinging bee, grant power of a swarm to me. Deus fidelis est ac permanens apis stimulus, da mihi postetam. When the last word was whispered, the manic insect immediately went still, and Gwendolyn knew her spell was cast. She laid flat the palm of her hand and stared at the tiny bee. The enchanted insect stared back, sunlight glinting off the tiny globes of its compound eyes while awaiting its orders. Gwendolyn parted her lips, and the bee took flight, buzzing directly into her mouth and settling upon her tongue. With the 3 ocelli eyes atop its head, the bee detected the change in light as Gwendolyn closed her mouth, enshrouding the creature in darkness. Her eyes snapped shut at the same time, and the connection was complete. In an instant, Gwendolyn assumed the role of queen of the colony. Then, with a casual wave of her hand in the direction of the goldenrod flowers, she halted the workers, which were busy as bees, collecting pollen and nectar. In unison, the bees, about 10 in total, effortlessly rotated in mid-air to face Raven's attackers, and with no more than a thought, Gwendolyn put her minions to work.
The next new release that just came out, it's from the Whiteland novels called, appropriately enough, Whiteland. Written by Rosie Crenay Higgs, narrated by A. Carey. The length on this one is 14 hours and 9 minutes. The summary: you're only going to get burned. By what? Monsters she calls into the night, and girls who go looking for them. In a lonely Swiss mountain village, Kira's holiday erupts. It's winter, it's eerie, and out in the woods. Something embeds its claws into her sister. When Romy returns, she's different. She's violent, inhuman, and by rights should be dead. But all their parents care about is that she's still alive. That is, until their parents disappear. In the otherworldly forest, Kira starts to pry, but secrets like to be kept. Alongside sarcastic Scotsman Calum, Kira stumbles upon the folkloric world of Whiteland, eating all she knows. Something has changed. It's all but imperceptible, but present nonetheless. A change in the air or a shift in her perceptions. She stills, listening, sensing. If Kira runs away, she'll be safe. If she doesn't, her family might not survive. In the end, there's no mercy in revenge. Here's a sample from this audiobook. Another one that's definitely a must get.
1. The Wild. Too small. Too warm. Sparks flicker behind her eyes, and sleepless, she stares at the ceiling. It's dark, as black can be, but the roof slopes down and the room closes in. Beams jut toward her. The air is thick and heavy. Her heart constricts. She has to go. Romy sits up. There's no light but the diamond through the shutters. No sound but Kira's breathing in the neighboring bed. Too close. Too small. The breathing crowds her ears. The cuckoo clock ticks in the corner, whirring closer to the hour. In the next room sounds a mirror bird, faintly out of time. Romy's temples throb. The need to breathe is too strong to resist. Gritting her teeth, she sweeps away the bedclothes, a cocoon of blankets half a foot high. Kira sighs in sleep. The bed creaks as Romy rolls over. She slips from the room like a wraith. The fire at the end of the corridor crackles, the logs smoldering to cinder and ash. Moving blind down the wooden hall, Romy creaks down the old cold stairs to the restaurant. The bar is shut, the tables deserted. Post-midnight moonlight shines through the curtains as she moves barefoot among the chairs. Each place is set. Romy shivers. It's eerier than she would have expected. In the sharpened, listening silence, she could be the only soul alive. There should be dancers. The instant she thinks it, they're there. A 1920s American party. A masquerade ball in a madman's mind. Tables of women in shimmering dresses surrounded by long-nosed masks. Leering eyes, bow ties, the scent of ravaged food and lust. The bar shines with spilt liquor. Two ladies twirl around and around, one in red and one in black with glistening candlelit curls. Their skirts brush a drunkard's stool. Their heels click to a gramophone. Maniacal laughter echoes in corners. The gramophone keens on. Silhouettes dance where there are no bodies. Voices exclaim where there are no mouths. The lace curtains flutter in a moonlit breeze. Romy blinks. The scene fades out. Laughter escapes through gaps in the shutters, ghosts melting into rough wooden walls. A curtain sighs by an open window. Blinking again, Romy rubs her eyes. She should go back to bed. Insomnia is often better than scaring herself in the dark. Heavens above, tonight she might sleep. And I'm the son of a serpent.
The last of the 5 books I'm going to recommend for today, audiobooks. I keep saying books, but you know what? You can get either one. I always recommend the audiobook. That's just my preference. But books or audiobooks, either way, you can't go wrong with this one called The Safe by Jeremiah Stonecastle, narrated by Angela Nurse. The length runtime is 3 hours and 12 minutes. The Cold Water Security Company has a technician who works with a burglary ring. He lets them know which clients have a lot of money and jewels stored in their safes. An elderly couple moves into a mansion in Cromwell, Connecticut. He watches as they store jewelry and cash in the safe. Then, something goes terribly wrong, and the old couple is killed. They thought they had an easy score. However, all they found was a combination to open the gates of hell. Sample now.
The cab driver was just putting the last piece of luggage in the trunk when Richard came outside, followed by Maria. He was giving her last-minute instructions before their departure. This was not necessary, but it made Richard feel like he was still in charge of something or someone other than himself. Retirement was not being very kind to him. "Don't forget to water the azaleas in 3 days, Maria," he said. "See, Mr. Cantor," she said. "And don't have any wild American parties," he said. "Oh, Mr. Cantor, you make a joke," Maria said with her heavy Hispanic accent. "And you can tell Mrs. Cantor to come on before we miss our train," he said. "I want to get to see Wendy and her boyfriend before they have children." Eloise came walking out, adjusting her hat. It was a hat that had survived decades with the loss of only a few of the plastic flower ornaments. She was never seen in public without it, and it was the reason for her delay. She gave Maria a hug and entered the cab. Richard looked back at the home as if he were seeing it for the first time. "See you in a week, Maria," he said before getting in the cab. "Okay, Mr. Cantor," she said. "I take care of everything for you." Maria waved and watched the cab as it drove out of sight. Somebody also was watching the taxi drive away. Luther and Sal sat in the van a block away watching. "This is going to be like taking candy from a baby, big brother," Sal said. "Don't take anything for granted, Sal," Luther said. "I thought, please." "Let's not bring up my last fuck-up, Luther," he said. "I'm shooting straight. This is just as important to you as it is for me. I'm going to take my share of the loot, find a third-world country where abusing women is not a crime, and live like a king." "While you're living like a king in those third-world countries, there's something you ought to think about, Your Majesty," Luther said. "And what's that, peasant?" Sal said. "They still decapitate in those kingdoms, your stupidest," Luther said with a chuckle. 30 minutes later, Maria alit from the house and drove away after waiting for the security gate to close. "Okay, let's get back to the farm and get ready to go to paradise," Luther said.
All right, so there you have it for today. The top 5 books I would suggest grabbing as quick as you can. I'll be back daily with these updates. I'm going to be providing new content daily, new books that you can get each and every day. I'm not just going to focus on horror, but all kinds of bestsellers, top rated, brand new releases, older classics, bit of everything, with samples always included, so you could hear them for yourself and see if they're up your alley or not. So again, if you are interested in any of these books, do click on the description, the link in the description below. It will take you to the Audible website where you can choose a free book with, again, no strings, no gimmicks, and you can cancel at any time and still keep the book. All right. They do have promotions every once in a while. I don't know, even if you click on the link now, you might be able to get 2 of these books for free. But do go check it out on your own time. And happy reading. Let me know in the comment section below if you're looking forward to getting any of these, or anything in the past you want me to review. I'll be more than glad to do that for you. For now, as always, stay safe, stay strong, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Mavakaga. Out.